essentially, a bit of a year in review. So for anyone new, this will give you an overview of just where we've been. For anyone who's been around, this is going to be a bit of a review. Talk a little bit about the road ahead, some of the big pieces we're working on. I had wanted to go deeper into this section in this update, but I am just getting over COVID. It thwacked me pretty hard. For anyone who catches this new strain going around, it is a doozy. And I've been in a bit of a mad dash myself, just getting back across everything that happened while I was out. In the new year, I will definitely be going into more detail about where we're at with the regional test launch. But for now, a high-level overview of things. Yeah, and I am testing negative now, but still not fully up to my normal Clay self. For anyone who's been in the town halls before, you know that I'm usually pretty quick on my mental feet, but I'm not quite all the way back yet. So if I'm talking a little bit slower in this, if I'm taking a little bit longer to pause to think, that is why I am still not completely out of the COVID brain fog, but I am mostly back to myself. But yeah, this is me. We've gone over this many times, but I'm Chris Clay. Everyone calls me Clay, game director for GOG and G over here at Immutable. And I will be guiding you through everything today. I've done lots of stuff. I'm not going to go into all of this yet again. But yeah, 2023, a year in review, and holy crap, what a year it has been. I really can't quite believe that we are coming to the end of 2023. It feels like it was just yesterday that it was the start of the year, and we were looking at GOG as it was, looking into where we wanted it to go and the plan to get there. So we started off the year with the MindLoader partnership. We got that out of the way. We had an absolute full rush to the beautiful corner and kind of knocked that out of the park. Moved on to our sort of limited beta with friends and family. And then, as you all know, we kind of took a step back and updated our plan with the Q4 launch, taking a little bit more time here to let Guild of Guardians bake and to go to launch with more features in place. That led us to this new revised roadmap where we're working now towards a regional test launch. I'll go into a little bit more details on where that is at further in. And then in Q2, going to that global launch, really with more of those Web3 features in place. So yeah, MindLoader, holy cow, that has felt like the best call I've made in quite a while. We've done so much over the course of this year. It's kind of hard to believe that we're we're not even a year into development on the new Guild of Guardians, but we've come so far, even from that beautiful corner screenshot back during the beautiful corner. But MindLoader has been amazing, and we are continuing to partner with them moving forward into 2024. Why did we do the reboot? A lot of it came down to where did we have the most opportunity to succeed in the mobile space? Squad RPGs, where we identified it. Again, looking at that segmentation, I think this remains true today. That's always a danger when you're looking at where you're going to try to win, that some of the game comes in and gobbles up the space. But as a subgenre in mobile gaming, squad RPGs still are fractured without a single game to sort of take over in that space. And Guild of Guardians is absolutely a project where we're aiming to go win. A lot of the plan was this gaming companion. And when I initially shared this back with the beautiful corner, we really weren't quite sure how that would fit in. That had been the plan. As we've gone through more tests, both internal and external, it has really settled in nicely as a game that you can focus in on. And man, that was an unintended part of Friends and Family where people absolutely blasted through a ton of GOG playtime, very much focused in on it. But yeah, something that you can have living alongside your daily life. Uh, that was the goal, and I think we've really landed there. As we've moved forward to the regional test launch, we've kind of honed this in. And some of how that will go is, initially, like any game, you're going to get in there, you're going to be playing it, it is going to be your focus. But as you settle in, get through the first time user experience, start getting into that pattern of doing your dailies, making further progress, building up tickets to summon more guardians, advancing those guardians. Um, it is something that we're aiming for that, couple of hours of engagement a day at most. Ideally, I still think at the current build, you can engage for longer than I would like. Trying to tune that in as we go into the regional test launch with MindLoader, and something that we will continue to tune in the regional test launch. But yeah, this gaming companion approach, I believe, has sit into the proper niche that I was going for. What was that beautiful corner? It was really testing in that core loop, that 1 day of engagement. Like, how does it work? Just living alongside. Everything went really well there. We saw the art come together. We saw this core loop of going through, picking your guardians, picking the runes, picking the rooms, eventually being defeated or winning, and then taking those, going through, doing your crafting, upgrading your guardians, upgrading their gear. Players liked it. Engagement was really good, both in the short term, where we were going for that just 1 hour of playtime. That's what Beautiful Corner was for, but also seeing that people were still engaging quite a time after that, even in that very early build. That took us through to Friends and Family, where we were essentially looking to build on that initial success. So we had that core loop. Then we expanded it out, getting leaderboard competition in place, expanding your collection time with the first delve, adding those daily rewards into the mix, adding in, the achievements, the story accomplishments, and those daily engagement points. All of that added on, where we saw a lot more engagement across the board. Again, I alluded to it earlier, but this was too much engagement. Retention was really good. Playtime was really good. But for everyone who played in that Friends and Family beta, burnout was also an ever-present danger. For myself, for others who engaged a lot, like, we got to see what that was going to be like over those, in some cases, 160 hours of playtime. That was too much. Still trying to really tone that into the right sweet spot so that we can appeal to as wide an audience as possible. We want people to be able to feel like they can log in, play their dailies, as they're going about their lives, but that GOG does not have to become an all-encompassing obsession. Obsessions are great. We want people to be obsessed with the game, but not have it be all-consuming in that obsession. So we've been tuning that in as we go to the regional test launch. Whew, so much data to go over, and we've used that to tune a lot moving forward into regional test launch. Wanted to give one more shout out to the people who ended up in the top 10 of that very first Endless run. There was so much effort and energy that went into it. Big shout out to all of the people who engaged even beyond this. We learned so much just in that first test launch, and we're continuing to refine the system as we look to have more different types of Endless events moving forward into expanding those systems. So there, high-level overview of where we've been, a little bit of the road ahead. So the big one that was announced this week that has been brewing in the background pretty much since Friends and Family, and some of the challenges we've had with the staking programs. I know I was chatting with some people in Discord around just the troubles of not having the ability to have smart contracts to manage some of the key Web3 components of our systems. So as we were looking at that and what it meant for GOG, particularly with all of the systems that we want to interact across the game and that wider Web3 ecosystem, as we looked at StarkX, as we looked at zkAVM, as we looked at things like the altar and the ecosystem that is going to be building up around both StarkX and zkAVM, it looked like zkAVM was going to be the right choice for Guild of Guardians to move to. We have been working as a team to proof point through that. One of my biggest concerns was, StarkX, the big advantage is no gas fees. With zkVM, due to the nature of that system, there are gas fees to throttle basically throughput on the system. And as we got through to that gas-free, game actions in particular, uh, it it was an ecosystem that I believe is going to be best for Guild of Guardians to succeed in. So for you, those of you who weren't in the Friends and Family Retro, where I started talking about the altar, uh, Guild of Guardians, will stand on its own within its ecosystem, but a lot of what I see with systems like the altar, allowing us to create crafting recipes that not only consume GOG NFTs, the GOG token, but also allow us to interact with those other games out there in the middle ecosystem. There is far more games committed to zkVM than StarkX at this point. And tapping into that so that, as people may or may not know, Passport exists both on StarkX and zkVM, but they are two, separate entities at this point. Getting onto zkVM just allows so much more possibility space in what we can do, both in the internal systems and their management, the trustlessness of having those smart contracts to manage things like the staking programs. When I look at our overheads in terms of what our internal team is working on, when I look at the community frustrations, moving over to zkVM is going to allow us to continue to empower the game, particularly when it looks to people building on top of it in that trustless fashion. So there's still a lot to suss out. There's more to go into, but this is a big step, a big change. But yeah. So pause here, brain. Any questions around that? I know that a lot of this is new. Um, Happy to take a moment here to answer anything that pops up in the chat. I think I've
Yeah.
talked
So
through. Yeah.
sorry,
Go
go
ahead,
ahead,
Ren.
Clay. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there. I was gonna say, yeah, so change from refresh guilds. He was asking if GOG was the main driver for IMX choosing to move to zkVM, if you wanted to shed some light there.
So no, with Immutable partnering with Polygon to bring up the zkVM, like GOG was not a driver for that in terms of moving into that. And with our timelines, it didn't necessarily make sense. zkVM has still not fully launched, so it really wasn't an option in my playbook if we were going into that Q4 release for Guild of Guardians. With moving into global launch in Q2, though, it became a possibility. So it's kind of opened up the option again. And having it actually be an option that we could really consider, that's what a lot of that thought process went into of what are the advantages of our StarkX? And there are certainly advantages to staying there. What are the advantages of zkVM? And when I look again at that greater ecosystem, and when I look at really just the advantages of smart contracts in managing so many of the Web3 functions versus having to build these external systems that people have to participate with, that ability to have smart contracts is just huge. And that led to us basically joining zkVM, but it wasn't the primary driver. And again, too, like speaking to Teo's question on bringing those NFTs across, like it had to be something that we were going to be able to migrate those NFTs without having costs fall to players, and we've got all of that in place now. So the answer is nothing. As long as you've got everything set up properly before we do the migration, everything will be covered. So those NFTs will be minted across seamlessly. Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Awesome. I think that was
Definitely,
a
we'll dive
great.
more in that in the future if questions come up. Yeah, please send them across. Um, the other side here has been getting Passport up and running for both the Beautiful Corner and for friends and family. We were just using a MindLoader, a sort of Web2 solution for sign-in, but we now have Passport in place. We've been using this internal for quite a bit in testing. When we do the regional test launch, that will be a Stark X passport just because of where we're at with Zkey AVM's release. And then we'll be moving to the Zkey EVM passport for login once we go to main launch. A big thing for me was just what is the ease of use for getting all of that set up, particularly for a person who isn't associated with Web3. And it is super easy, particularly because of the Google integration, just being able to use your Google account to create and go. This has been a really good first step on trying to take players through that Web 2 to Web 3 journey of just making it really easy to get going. So essentially, getting your passport up and running is very similar to creating an account for any sort of Web 2 game. There isn't a whole bunch of additional steps. That wallet creation happens, but you don't have to do anything special for it. It is just there in the background until you choose to start interacting with it. And in parallel to the regional test launch, we also have a Web3 build where we're starting to look at all of the systems, on testnet for minting and whatnot. And those are still very work in progress, early stages. But we've been doing that testing on Zkey EVM just to make sure that everything was going to run as smoothly as we expected. And we've been making really good progress on that integration front at the same time that we're moving ahead with essentially the Web 2 game part of things as well. There has been questions that have popped up around the regional test launch. So I want to go over some things at a very high level. The region that we're going to be targeting is Canada only. The reason that we're targeting Canada is it is the best mix of basically cost to acquire the users that we're looking to get a really good pool of data from. So we're targeting 10,000 people. And what we're looking to test here is retention, monetization, and live balance. So, when we're doing these tests for Beautiful Corner and Friends and Family, we definitely gather a ton of data. But the game's possibility space has expanded so much since Friends and Family. When we're looking at the total number of runes that are in the system, we've gone from a couple dozen to over 100. In terms of guardians in the mix, we've got far more guardians in the mix. So being able to do a regional test launch where before we go global, we can really hone in on the balance. And that whole funnel from the front all the way through to day 30, looking at all the places that people are engaging heavily with, the places that people are getting stuck with in the game. We'll make sure that the experience is as optimized as possible, both through the first-time user experience and all of those late game engagement points with the Endless Dungeon, launching those banners, having multiple Endless Dungeons events during the test. It's going to be an amazing test bed for us to hone in everything that Guild of Guardians is. It's definitely not going to be perfect at launch, but it will have all of those pieces in place for us to really hone in. Essentially all of the story dungeons versus like the partial that we've had. And like a big one for me really is the learnings that we're going to get from running more endless events. The rewards coming out of that are going to be, all Web 2 in nature. There won't be Web 3 integration at this stage. No, don't move to Canada for the test. And I can't talk too much into it, but if you're not in this test, you will not be missing out and falling behind. That is a big part of all of this, particularly for the OGs. For non-OGs that want to take part, this is not financial advice, but there are ways to switch regions and whatnot. It's not super easy, but you can do so if you're really committed to it. Um, uh,
We do
but
have a
yeah.
die-hardy community, so it's good that you told people not to, like, pack their bags and move over, because I do think some of them in the
Yeah,
community are probably gonna do that, so wouldn't put
yeah.
it
I mean,
past.
some of it is you guys have done so much heavy lifting through Beautiful Corner, through just all of the content, all of the engagement to carry GOG as far as you have. Letting the Canadian audience do some heavy lifting as we get through this stage. Yeah, you can let them do some of the work so that you can take advantage of all of that as we go to global launch in Q2. Um, so if I had not had COVID, this would have been a much more in-depth section. But I did not have time to gather all of the content to build beautiful slides, so I'm going to talk through it so you get to listen to the dulcet tones of my voice about a lot of those lessons learned and what's going to be changing as we go into regional test launch. So here at the top of the dungeon, so one of the big pieces of feedback in both Beautiful Corner and Friends and Family is it can be very frustrating to go into a dungeon, grind through, and then fail, particularly at the last boss time and time again. There was basically a high spike of difficulty, often into the final rooms of a dungeon. And it meant you were re-going through the same pieces of content over and over again. So one of the solutions we experimented with that I think has worked out really well is we've broken up the dungeons into essentially sub-dungeon parts um, to ease that. So instead of having the 20 rooms that you're going through with that big boss fight at the end, each of these sub-dungeons is smaller. In the tutorial, it might be so few as 5, but like around 15 for a lot of them, allowing you to only have to do maybe a couple of runs as you're leveling up your guardians, getting new gear before you defeat it, get your end of dungeon rewards, and then go on to the next stage. There's still failure. It's a big part of like the whole roguelike experience, but the sub-dungeons has been a big step forward. In terms of runes, this is where even my balanced brain, which I think is pretty good, is still in a bit of overload. We've added a little over 100 different runes into the ecosystem and changed from that system where you had a very few runes that you could level up to 10 times to a smaller or a larger set of runes. So as you're going through a dungeon, it's less likely that you're going to be upgrading a rune more than a couple of times. But the runes are much more diverse. They target specific um, domains. They target specific roles. Um, uh, Let us do a little bit more work on honing in the rune list, but sharing it is certainly possible. Um, but this is one of those key pieces of balance as we go into and live with regional test launch. The runes will continue to iterate and change, but just in playing through it myself, uh, like in Friends and Family, you kind of knew what you were picking. Like it was a foregone conclusion what you were going to be leveling up, and there is more deliberative choice of like, hey, what are the trade-offs here? And starting to introduce some of what we had hoped for with going in with your guardians of having more than just those 5. So with Friends and Family in particular, it just made sense to level up 5 guardians. There was no reason really to switch out. Just maxing out your 5 guardians and letting them run was the best plan. Now with this approach of having runes that really up specific roles, up specific domains, hitting a key legendary rune that really targets Solus, for instance, all of a sudden you're going to be looking to potentially swap out your party to take advantage of that. We'll still have to see exactly how that plays out, but that's definitely changed a bunch. When it comes to balance, continuing to refine Guardian balance, and oh my gosh, we have added so many more Guardians into the mix. So when we're going out to this Web 2 launch, it will be mostly different Guardians than people have played in both the Beautiful Corner and Friends and Family, where it was primarily the founder sort of Web3 Guardians. but they won't be present. There won't be Aaliyah, that players can obtain in the regional test launch. It's all going to be the Web 2 Guardians. So there's been a lot of development on that front, getting them all created and animated and in. But that has been going really well. A lot of those Guardians are looking good. I think those will help guide those Web 2 players in, start getting really attached to the game until they will learn about the Leas and all of the other Web3 Guardians that hopefully get them to complete the rest of their journey into becoming full hardcore Guild of Guardians players. In terms of engagement, this is, again, continuing to tune this in. Again, my goal is that you can come in, you complete your dailies pretty quick. So when you talk about daily engagement, being able to come in and complete your dailies is a big focus for me, keeping that well under an hour. So it's something that even on a busy day, you can sort of kick out as key. Still see people with the energy available, able to engage for multiple hours a day. Right now, we're still too deep. It's one of the things that I've been asking MindLoader to continue to refine to bring that top end down. But we're making improvement on that front. For banter, this is just another storytelling system. So depending on the guardians that you have in your party, we've created a number of different unique banter scenarios where different arrangements of guardians will have different bits of banter. Just one more thing for players to experiment with and explore. As you unlock new characters, changing up those combinations will give you new bits of story, a deeper view into the backstory of those guardians. Fatui, I believe there's a question, is first-time user experience. So we've been continuing to hone that. This is still just the Web 2 first-time user experience, and we're going to be working in the new year on adding in the Web 3 first-time user experience, essentially guiding players through all of that. But we learned more about some of the places in the Fatui where people were getting stuck and bouncing out during friends and family. We've tried to iron out all of those points. The story has gone on beyond the little snippet that we had in Friends and Family to the full arc across all four major chapters. And that, again, provides more depth into the world. And then Endless, continually being refined. Again, this is the place where we have the most possibility space in live events to really engage players, give them unique combinations of problems. And also, my goal for the Endless is to have unique events for people who have made that journey into Web3. So this allows us to have Endless events for people, who have Founders Guardians, have that a requirement to enter the event and whatnot, getting all those requirements set up for that global launch. There's a lot. Oh gosh, and not to mention building a whole store and essentially overhauling the game's economy. So in Friends and Family, there's no way to monetize. In Beautiful Corner, same thing. It's all this free-to-play only version of the Web3 economy, or of the economy. None of the Web3 will be in place in this initial launch. It'll just be Web 2. But this has required a complete rebalancing of all of those systems. So really tuning in on making sure that people who enter the game can get started, they can get going, and then ideally look to use the store to accelerate their play. And ultimately, again, take them on that journey from Web 2 into Web 3 by you get a legendary guardian in a Web 2 banner, and that's amazing. That's something that can take you through a good chunk of the game. But taking it into Web 3 consumes some of those key resources, from generated from the GOG token, and further enhances those guardians. There's a question later on that we'll tackle. But a lot's coming in regional test launch. There's a lot left to learn, a lot left to optimize, and we will keep you posted as we continue to learn there. Bunch of AMA questions. Leah still is the best champion. Every time I look at and work with them on rebalancing, I swear the numbers just keep crawling up. Leah will still be very strong at launch, but probably not completely broken like she was in Friends and Family. Cool. White paper. So we are behind here. This has been definitely a challenge to manage because the white paper is owned by the foundation and not by us. We have made really good progress on this front. The January update we had really hoped to get out by the end of the year, but we've got a little bit of holdup with some remaining legal questions from the foundation. But this update will carry through with GOG's transition to the roguelike squad, the Art Guardian and equipment refresh, the GOG token utility update, and GOG's move to Immutable ZKVM. Yes, the switch to ZKVM also added an additional complication to the white paper refresh, which contributed to this pushing out of the year. But we're close. We've got a lot of this planned out, but we want to get this finalized before we go too in-depth on the sharing. Apologies on this front. I want to get this information to you as soon as we possibly can. And then it will continue to be a living document. We will be including pets and guild as a fast follow to that initial update soon. So soon. GOG tokens to ZKVM. So this was one of the concerns that we saw coming up through Discord based on it. There is no plan in place currently for a bridge between StarkX and ZKVM, so the short answer is yes. GOG holders will be required to move their tokens from StarkX to Layer 1 and then back up to Immutable ZKVM. That's where we're at today. We absolutely hear your concerns around that, particularly for people who own a small number of tokens. I do think the big thing we can do on this front is ensure that the GOG token continues to gain in value. Ideally, we get to the point where even for people who have a lower number of GOG tokens, it makes sense to make that move, would be good. Can we come up with other solutions? I've got some thoughts that I'm having the team investigate for how we could do that across. Obviously, with NFTs going across, there are some options on that front. A lot of it comes down to cost benefit. If we're building those systems, we're not building others that we need to for launch. But we see the challenge, and we are not ignoring it. Tokenomics. Okay, so this comes with a big old disclaimer at the top because the white paper is still getting finalized, but I want to walk you through some of where we're at. I don't know if Howie is in the audience to back me up on any of this, so or if you want to take this slide, Howie.
He just hopped on.
All right, I think Howie will.
Hello, can people hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, cool. Okay, I can take this.
Yeah. Thanks.
Our tokenomics plans in the last Friends and Family retrospective, and since then we made further progress. The main holdback to us publishing this in the white paper is we haven't gotten confirmation from the app stores that this is okay, and because they will scrutinize the white paper, we don't want to preempt that and get it and effectively put it down in writing. And so it's a bit of like stakeholder management on our end. But what we can share with the community is our current plans. So basically, like I said previously, in-app we cannot use tokens as transactions. So we can't use GOG tokens in the app to charge for minting, for example. And so what we've done is we've created an alternative system where players no longer need to spend tokens, but they need to hold tokens in the wallet. And so we have a service that will calculate the amount of tokens that players hold in their wallets over the course of, say, a week. And then we will provide minting energy. This placeholder name. I know we have a lot of energy systems. It's likely this Ella will ask me to change this name very soon. But this minting energy gets rewarded to you. It's charged up effectively. You can think of like Clash of Clans, the elixirs there, and you claim this minting energy by doing daily quests. And then once you've obtained this minting energy, then you spend this minting energy on converting your Web 2 guardians into Web 3 guardians. So remember, all the gacha bot you pull starts off as Web 2, and then you have to convert them into Web 3 to get the radiance. The amount of minting energy that's required to convert a guardian from Web 2 to Web 3 is on a curve, right? And so this is meant to be a economy sustainability tool, kind of ensures that the floor price in the market kind of matches what people are prepared to pay in terms of like costs. And so effectively, the more of a guardian that gets minted, the more that you will, the more minting energy that's going to be required to mint that particular guardian. It's going to create scarcity in the market, right? And then finally, we will always ensure that there are constantly new guardians that are available to be minted, and there'll also be a pool of guardians that can also be minted at not a very steep cost. And so those guardians are the evergreen guardians, and those evergreen guardians really are catering for the free-to-play players, right? The players that may not have a lot of tokens or may not have been invested so much into the game yet. All right. Next slide. Of course, we can give reward out GOG tokens in the leaderboard. There's no problems with that. Out of app, we will be looking to introduce direct token utility, and so that you can use your tokens to you can spend those tokens in this feature that we have called the altar. The altar, like I said, it's like it's a live ops economy balancing tool. Basically, it will follow a recipe structure. You burn certain NFTs, put in tokens, and you get new NFTs out of this. And so with this system, we can permit direct token utility. And then, of course, the original staking programs all exist. They're made easier with ZK EVM, so we can sort of expand them and make interesting dynamics with the smart contracts. And then finally, we're always looking for additional ways to add utility both in-app and out-of-app. We're trying to do some version of an in-app token utility, but those plans are still brewing, and we're not ready to share that yet. Questions on this? I'm just going to review this quickly because I have to jump from this call soon. But I see one from Gnome. Oh well, will you be able to buy minting energy in-app for money, or is it staking the only way to get it? Currently, as of today, minting energy can only be by holding GOG tokens. Now, that may change. We're still just exploring whether this is a good idea or whether the community wants it. So any feedback there would be appreciated. The amount of minting energy you get based on tokens held is based on a bonding curve. The amount of minting energy you get for tokens held is based on the curve. It's probably going to be like a sawtooth curve instead of like a bonding curve. It may not be linear, right? We don't want the system to be a whale system, right? That's not the intention. So for the whale players that want like instant gratuity, we advise them to perhaps use the altar for more direct minting, right? This is meant to be a sustainable system for free-to-play players and the tokens that we give out in leaderboards, right? So there'll be other systems that cater for that type of player persona. What other questions do we have?
Yeah, and just on that, like, some of the way that it's looking at, how the GOG token flows through the overall economy. It's can the system work so that everyone is ultimately motivated to have some GOG that they're holding? Because if we can have all players in GOG holding, hey, how am I going to mute you because can you
sorry.
mute yourself? You're pulsing. um, is Yeah, it's good for the GOG token overall if you've got lots of holders holding some amount of it. So with the system, that's some of the goal. It's like as a starter, this gets everyone who goes on their GOG journey to the point where they want to have a store of GOG tokens, which we think is good. And it also sets up this holding mechanic where right now it's for this minting energy. But can we then use it, depending on how successful that is, to build additional systems on top down the line in live operations to provide additional benefits? I think there's a lot of opportunity space there.
And then finally, there's some questions on the altar. Again, we will share more details in the white paper. The altar can be deployed to mint anything, but it's likely at global launch that it will just be Guardians.
Yeah, and the altar isn't meant to mint equipment in particular. That is a very important commitment that if we're making NFTs in the GOG economy, that those are coming from guilds. But the altar isn't like specific. It's not that the altar can only mint guardians. A big part of it is our ability to set up recipes that consume whatever components we want from the Web3 ecosystem, and then kick out whatever items on the other side. So it's that flexibility which makes it so powerful.
Okay, if not, if there's no more questions on the tokenomics, then we can move on, I think.
Cool.
Yep, sounds good.
Energy in-game limitations. Will there be a limit on actions in the game per day? How many hours per day will the game require, taking into account the use of energy tokens and without them? So top line, will there be a limit on actions per day? And there will not be a hard limit on actions per day. This is a really, really complex question, which is why I can't say it's like, yes, you will be able to engage for precisely 97 minutes a day. It's going to change. So some of how this works with game design is when people get into a game, you have this initial love and hyper focus on it. So in the early stages, potentially over that first 3 days in particular, up to the first week or so, you want people to be able to engage more in the game than they normally would in the long term. So early on, making sure that players can engage for many hours, so likely longer than that initial 3 target that I was talking about. And this is something that we're going to have to tune in during regional test launch. If you tune that too tight and don't allow enough, you run into trouble. If you make it too deep, you can burn people out. So again, way less than in Friends and Family, where we were looking at 18 plus hours a day, but not so low as after 3 you're done for the day. It really will depend partly on the player's goals. So some of how you want to set up these live operation systems is making sure that people log in regularly. So when at that bare minimum, it's people pop in, they run a couple of dungeons, endless or otherwise, to complete their dailies, and they feel like they've accomplished something, and they feel good about the project and the progress in. And that's sort of like a steady state. They keep playing, they keep engaged, they're making progress. At a higher end, so for somebody with that wants to maximize all of their energy use that has an energy token, like that will likely be higher. That's somebody who's not going to be playing for under an hour. That's somebody who's going to be playing potentially for 3 or 4 hours a day. Like again, a lot of it will depend on their goals, and some of it too would depend on like how many endless events we have running at any point in time. So there could be weeks where we only have one endless event on. Some of my hope is that we get to the point where there are choices of like which endless events you want to participate in. So that would be higher. So the answer is variable. And having that energy token early on, if you're in that initial land rush, provides you with more hours of gameplay, so that you can ideally push out to the front. Is how it would answer that question. Guild feature and launch timing. Will guilds be released at launch or post-launch? What will the guild functions and features be? So on this, we're absolutely aiming to have guilds in at global launch. They will not be in the regional test launch, and we'll be sharing more details on guilds in the new year. Essentially, what we're looking at is just implementation with MindLoader of the guild systems. So at a very high level, we're looking to have at launch the key things that make a guild go, being able to invite people into it, being able to have actions that players can perform within the guild each day, having things like a guild shop that you can spend currency that you get within the guilds on. The big question mark is guild raids. I really want guild raids in from the get-go. I think that's an important sort of shared guild objective, but it's really coming down to implementation time. Since it's not fully in yet, I can't 100% commit to that being a launch feature. It may be a fast follow, but guilds themselves will be in. Guild raids definitely on the roadmap right now. It's mostly just coming down to implementation time. But more details on that in the new year. Legendary Esports Hero. This one was a little bit confusing just because of the pluralities. But I believe it was speaking to Strong Hands. We have worked through an initial pitch. Strong Hands provided us with some art. It will not go into game exactly as his art stated. We are going to keep things true to the Guild of Guardians lore, and there were components that are kind of modern Web3 components that just won't completely match with the aesthetic and the lore for Guild of Guardians. But we've got that visual approach. We've got a skill set pitched by Strong Hands. MindLoader needs to actually implement it now. So the thing that I'm a little bit less certain on is whether that will be in global launch as part of sort of the evergreen, or if we're going to use them as a special live ops release. That part of the plan is still very much up in the air. But as I iron in that, we will let you know. Okay, Ryan got that question. Utility and pets on guilds. When will we know the utility of pets and guilds? Will they be included in the next demo? So they will not be in the regional test launch. They will be in for global launch. The white paper update in January should, fast follow on the January one, will speak more to the specific utility there. Just calling it out, it's very much something that I recognize as the game director for the Guild of Guardians. I realize that guilds are looking to play a big part here. We are looking at all of those options for what guilds can mint into the ecosystem. Again, I think the altar is something that provides a lot of utility here. If the guilds, through shared effort, can mint things that can be consumed by the altar to get other things, it provides a lot of utility into the mix. We're still working out all of the fine details on that front, but soon. Founder utility. Will Founder Legendary Heroes and Early Adopter Esports Heroes have the ability to be endgame? I worry that they won't get a chance to compete with Ascended Guardians that have special upgrades the minted NFTs now cannot have. they're absolutely going to be competitive. The initial Farting Guardians have a head start on any of the Guardians that are going to be minted out of the game in live. They don't have the same duplicate Guardian requirements that the Guardians that are coming out of sort of Web 2 to Web 3 will have. And just with the supply constraints with the bonding curves, like future Guardians also won't be like this unlimited area as well. In terms of like power, like they should be very comparable. Like the Founders Guardians have a head start. The Founders Guardians are also unique. We're not going to have Web 2 Guardians that just mimic the skills and abilities of the other. And this is something that we'll keep a close eye on. If we get to the point where we're seeing that Founder Guardians are slipping, this is something that we can adjust and balance over time. The goal absolutely is to keep Founder and Esports Guardians in the meta and in the mix. I can't promise that every Esports Guardian and Founder Guardian will always be a part of the primary meta. That's just not how metas work. There will be winners in the mix, but some of what I've always said on balance, like if you go listen to any podcast on it, is as we're crafting the challenges, as we're crafting the meta of different endless events, the goal is to ensure that the different guardians have different places that can succeed in the balance. You perfect balance is all but impossible to obtain. So as you're crafting that, looking to make sure that you're doing what you can to pick who are the winners going to be in any meta that exists, and making sure that you rotate those through. So it will be dynamic. PvP. I noticed on the website that you mentioned that PvP is not a focus of the game. If that's the case, is there any possibility of seeing game modes like Guild vs. Guild in the future, and will you still add PvP arena mode in the future? So at launch, direct PvP is not a focus for either individuals or guilds. The PvP in it is indirect PvP through leaderboards. So there is player versus player competition, but indirect PvP. As we get through to launch, as we go into live ops, direct PvP is absolutely possible for both guilds and for individuals. I mean, it's one of those things that makes sense as another sort of leaderboard challenge in the mix for people to be able to pit their guardians against other people's guardians. Again, when I talk to that balance point on founders and like future guardians, this adds one more place. You could have guardians that are the best at running dungeons, guardians that are the best in endless, guardians that are best in PvP. Adding this into the ecosystem makes a ton of sense. It's just not going to be there for launch. It's not that I don't want it for launch. It's just trying to focus in what we need to have a successful launch. I would love more PvP. I love competition. Future new game modes. Do you have any plans of adding any other fun features game modes aside from the Dungeon Auto Battler mode that we've seen in the last demo? So this is a dangerous one. So, as a designer, one of the and it's particularly as a game director, one of the things that I'm always looking at is the game's possibility space. For those of you who haven't heard me talk through it before, possibility space is like what are all the potential choices and options a player has for interacting with a game. And a more narrow possibility space, players tend to tap out sooner. So very simple possibility space, tic-tac-toe. Really, really quickly, even kids can look at tic-tac-toe and realize it's a solvable game. Like you can, with any board state, know what are the moves that make a tie or win. Just a simple example. Chess, much richer possibility space. So with Guild of Guardians, when it comes to additional new modes, there is a wealth of possibility. With the lore that we've created, with the Guardians we've created, there are so many different ways that we can potentially use them. And it's easy to get lost in that space, and I could write design documents all day about additional modes. So much fun to dream about where that can be. I guess what I'm trying to say with this is, as we get into live operations, as we stabilize the core systems, as we flesh out some of those systems that we know we need to build to complete the roadmap in live operations in 2024, we can do so much more to extend the game from there. But I don't have an exact roadmap, I would say, where I know that in November we're going to add tower defense to Guild of Guardians. Is it something we could do? Absolutely. Is it something we will do? I wouldn't say no. But it's monitoring that possibility space of how these things could fit in versus specking out where everything is. Trust me, folks, I am full in on just getting the plan now out the door. And that is my full-time job. Regional test. Will regional test be a test net on test blockchain? If not, when will be a test net tested? So internally, as we are working with things right now, we are working with the test net. The regional test launch in January will be Web 2 only. What we are looking at is, before we go to global launch, essentially doing I wouldn't even call it a soft launch per se, but a test of the Web3 systems. This wouldn't be everything, because setting it up for testnet is its own batch of work. Everything we set up at testnet, we have to reset up on mainnet. They are two different systems. But making sure that some of those key things work on testnet is going to be important. As is making sure that they work on mainnet. And some of this comes through, how should I put this? Once we launch on mainnet and we are minting things to mainnet, like the game is live, like that is one of just the truisms of Web3. So some of what I'm trying to do with the team is craft a mainnet test, because testnet is great. It'll be good to test things there, but also crafting a mainnet test that allows us to test the things that are safe to test with Web3. So this would be doing a test where people can play with their Web3 guardians that they already have, use things like their, probably Web3 guardians, maybe use things like guilds, and then potentially doing something like an endless event where we can go test those leaderboard systems. The thing that I would caveat there is I want to be careful with what those leaderboard rewards would be. Some of the way that I'm looking at it is, particularly with the altar in store, I would love to have crafting components that could be minted out that aren't directly usable initially, but then can be used in recipes as players see fit, so they can essentially pick the rewards, but we'll see exactly how that plays out. That's a long answer to no testnet in regional test launch, but plans for testing on both testnet and mainnet before we go to global. Regional tests, slide 2. Will non-regional OGs be able to play as well? So at the moment, no, unless they're in Canada. A lot of this too comes down to, I love all of you in the GOG community. The amount of effort and energy you put into Beautiful Corner and friends and family is fantastic. But I've talked to you about the Golden Cohort effect. You guys are really engaged, and we need to make sure that we are testing with non-hardcore Guild of Guardian members to make sure that as we go out to that global launch, as we look to essentially spend millions of dollars on marketing to pull in non-core Guild of Guardians people, that the game works for them as well. Because we need to have a game that has lots of players in the mix, and to do that we need to test with it. So the goal for this is to test in Canada, to have this set of players without any sort of preconception of what Guild of Guardians is, and see how they work with retention, monetization, the whole shebang. So there is no practical way for us to send out sort of like temp invites into that. Could we have a build up potentially for the OGs to also play on? It's possible, but it's not where the focus is right now. I have to get the regional test launch out with the team first. But if there is a ton of interest there, we could consider it. But we will keep you updated with how regional test launch is going, everything we're learning from it, the changes we're making from it, so that you're part of the process as we learn, and we are going to learn a lot from that launch. Marketing. There was a question on marketing, like how are we going to promote the game to entice more players to check out the game? This is really unchanged from where we were at Friends and Family. Basically, there's going to be a worldwide integrated marketing campaigns for launch with influencers, performance marketing, PR, token growth loops. We've got a AAA launch trailer in production that is wrapping up and looks amazing. The music for it is fantastic. Really happy with where that is in terms of just setting the scene and getting people interested in the project. And again, that strategic partnerships across the Immutable ecosystem. By the time we launch, we'll have some other games in the mix, and leveraging the altar, leveraging where they're at, leveraging the esports teams on co-marketing are all parts of the strategy. The thing I would layer into this too is, though I am not a spring chicken, I do participate on the TikToks and otherwise. I understand the importance of things like getting sounds out into the mix, using virality to get people interested in the product. And that is some of the take that we've had with generating some of the assets for the project. Looking at potential partnerships with artists throughout Asia and globally who have strong followings, who we can potentially use to leverage into that viral marketing, all things we are investigating. Virality is never a given. It's not something that's on tap. You've got to get all of those right, but we've got a lot of creative in the mix that I think has the possibility to get us there. And some of this too is in the characters. So I think some people were talking about our axolotl guardian. Cuteness has a place. Sexy has a place. Appealing, like waifus, husbandos. Making sure that we have art that catches people's eye and they want to go know more of those characters. All things we're looking at to take GOG into the mainstream. One last thing, I had hit on this in the other. There are a couple of questions that flow through that I did not answer. And it comes down to this thing that I hit on at the Friends and Family Retro that I want to index in again. Treating each other with respect. So story time, anyone who has ever interviewed at Immutable gets this. So little sneak peek to what it's interviewing like with Clay at Immutable. When I was at Wizards of the Coast, it was not always a friendly environment. Some of the most creative people I've ever worked with. It's a time that I'll always cherish, but also a lot of toxicity in the mix, and not a core element of respect. And when you look at me, I am 6'5", white heteropassing male, game director, crazy successful project, and even that didn't protect me. When I left, the thing I was looking for was a commitment to respect, that the people at the company I went to would be held to a high standard. I joined Immutable at the time, a little tiny startup, because that was the commitment that I got from the founders, that we would hold people in the company to that high standard. When you look at Immutable today, a part of why we're able to do some of the crazy things we have done, a part of why we're able to acquire the talent we can acquire is because of that core component. People who are diverse, people who have really struggled to create their careers elsewhere in the industry, know that they can come to Immutable and they can work on hard problems, and those hard problems aren't going to be the people next to them in the trenches. That they can rely on the fact that they will be treated with respect here. That is something that we hold our partners to, and that is something that I really want to hold the Guild of Guardians community to, because when you hold to it, you can work together to solve really challenging problems. So, my ask is, hold us accountable. If you have things like the minting that you do not like, that you want to challenge us on, you can do that respectfully. You can challenge us respectfully. You can point out problems respectfully. Because when you do it respectfully, we're on the same team trying to tackle those problems. When you treat people with disrespect, it is part of my job to be able to translate that and still get to the problem. Like, I will still do that, but it has a higher cost. But what I would love to see as we go out to this global launch is when people come and join the Guild of Guardians community, they see people engaging respectfully. They see that encouragement and that positive environment where we're tackling hard things. And this isn't blowing smoke, and I want to be clear on this. This is not just about being positive. You can be incredibly challenging to your peers and be respectful. And that is what I want to help craft with the community. And as we look at the interactions in the Discord, this will be a standard that we're going to apply more forcefully. And that will mean working with the mods, it will be working with Ryan to hold us all to a higher standard. This isn't something where there's no support there. If I've got challenges, I will call people out on it, we'll call people on it and like how you can reframe these things. But keep the criticism coming. I cherish the criticism. It has helped make GOG so much better from the beautiful corner on, even the initial challenges to the product itself. But please keep them in that respectful tone. I know you can all can do it, and it will make the game and the community so much better. And the more respectful it is, the easier it is for me to drop on. I want to spend more time there, but having this thread of disrespect makes it really hard. And the thing that I've said before, and I will say again, is I have to protect my energy. If you talk to my boss, Justin, or anyone else, I have so much that I have to do on GOG to get all of this together that my energy comes foremost so that I can go do all of these hard things. I would love the GOG community to be a place that I go and I can guarantee that I'm going to be able to get energy out of it. And if we hold to this, that will be true. Thank you. I will step off my soapbox now. Cool. Really quick. 2024. Holy shit. I can't believe we're already going into 2024. It feels like just yesterday that we signed with Mindletter, but here we are, heading into 2024. Where are we? So we've got a really solid base to the project. We've got a really strong core loop. We've got meta systems that are building on top of that core loop, driving retention and engagement. We've got a strong community that is getting ever stronger. We've got a token that is on the rise as the bull market starts to tick up and people look at us more seriously, as people have been asking. Oh my gosh, the number of people in the wider community that asked after friends and family to get a special invite to go and play was impressive. Investors and otherwise. A little bit of a pain, but absolutely worth it. Guild of Guardians is in an excellent place to catapult into 2024. And that is getting recognition. You guys have carried us through a very difficult year. And ideally, if everything plays to script, 2024 proves that I am a main character in my own life, and we continue to live this dream of taking Guild of Guardians into the most successful Web 2 mobile launch in Web3 history. That then catapults further launches that build out the Immutable ecosystem. We want to go show everyone just what is possible in this space, and we are absolutely on track to do that. Not saying there won't be bumps in the road. I guarantee that there are going to be bumps in the road, but we have so much that we can accomplish over the next year. I cannot wait to see what I'm talking to all of you about at the 2024 recap. It's going to be challenging. There are going to be things that go sideways, and all of us are going to work together to go take it to that next step. It's going to be pretty. We're going to shine some shared light in our fight against the Dread. And we're going to onboard a whole bunch more people into the ecosystem. The marketing team has been working on the initial App Store trailer to that front. This is not final, but here we go. I said play. right. And with that, no, I do not want to play you again. Stop. Exit.
And the music wasn't too bad. I think
All
everyone
right.
loves the music.
What? There, QA. Finally. Slides sometimes. Yeah, if we have any last questions, we've got just a little bit of time here. We'll answer what I can.
Yep, sounds good. Let's be mindful that Clay's still recovering from COVID, but he did an absolute amazing job presenting this recap today. So let's see what few questions we have. So I think Teo, ETA on next staking. So for the active staking, we need to still build it out on ZK EVM. So we don't really have an ETA just yet, but maybe in Q1 we'll be able to provide a further update. Change refresh is a question about what does the token loop mean. I think maybe Shadow Day might be able to give more examples here, but that's pretty much just what are some programs that we can design that can really help with user acquisition and launch. So things like referral programs or share to earn type of programs. How can we really like leverage the token to really kind of create these
No looking at my tabs.
large user acquisitions? Fries, what's GOG MVP economy on the bookmark? It's always a cheeky one, Fries.
Yeah, I gotta like sterilize everything before I give these presentations.
Oh yeah, this community is going to be looking at every little part of your screen, that's for sure, to get any possible leak that they can get.
Some of these questions are good questions, but not things that I can necessarily do right off the top of my head.
Yep, we have a question about the alpha. I think we'll have a bit more details in Q1. I think Howie would have been. Yep. Sorry, you were about to say
Yeah,
something,
no,
Clay?
like the thing I would say on the altar though is the altar is about flexibility. So a lot of what my experience has been in Web3 is so often we've created systems to solve a problem, sort of tailor ordered, and the altar isn't designed to do one thing. Like it's not just designed to mint guardians. It's designed for this flexibility, and it's designed for learning. So like it is definitely not static. So it's not that we will get a recipe up on it and that recipe will be up there forever. It's designed to be like, hey, this recipe is available for the next day, the next 3 days, the next week, whatever it is. So change over time is exactly what it's designed to be. There will be very little static with the altar, I believe. Have you considered allowing people to send you GOG on Immutable so you can batch move it to ZKVM and then distribute smaller, similar to staking rewards? It is something we considered, and also a huge logistics challenge. Just, it's not something you can get wrong, and supporting that right now isn't in the cards. With all of the other commitments we've got on the team at the moment. That would be a major distraction, but was something we considered.
Question from Stepfam: will the ambassador program come back to life, or that's something the Immutable Heroes will be taking on? Yep, so this is another great question. So we've always been thinking about how can we really leverage and involve the GOG community over the years, and obviously we've deployed a lot of things. Some things worked, some things haven't. A great example of something that has worked is the Immutable Heroes program, which is a lot of the Twitter content creators. And if any of you are quite active on crypto Twitter or just Twitter in general, you'll probably see a lot of the work that the Immutable Heroes have been doing. For GOG, I think when launch period does come around, we are definitely going to be leveraging the Immutable Heroes. And then yeah, there's Nigel from IMX. He sees a bunch of the heroes there already. So I think for GOG specifically, I think we might be looking more towards the content creator side and seeing how can we tap into more of that. So stay tuned for more details next year. But to answer your question, StepFam, definitely with launch around the corner, we're going to be exploring all these type of avenues in terms of like immutable heroes or content creators. But more details in Q1. Awesome. We'll just yep.
Real quick, do you have to have a Guardian Chroma to interact with the altar? Was that part of the Chroma utility? Definitely not required. Could there be recipes that use Chroma Guardians? Sure, but not a requirement to use anything.
Definitely a lot of altar questions. It's definitely a very hyped up topic in the community. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's something that I'm really excited about, and I'm expecting it to be a system that continues to evolve as we learn more for it. Like Gnome has a question: does everyone get the same altar recipe for that day? Right now, yes. There isn't a variability to it where there would be just different recipes. The outcomes could be variable though, so it wouldn't necessarily be guaranteed that everyone has the same result. I don't think that's necessarily where we're starting with some of the recipes, but it's one of the options in the system.
You share what the champion chroma means, asks Jacko with Lime, I'm not sure which one it is, but
I'm not quite grokking the question.
the champion chroma, is that something that you've mentioned? I think Jacko was asking, what does that exactly entail?
Oh, it's these are the variants. So essentially, at its base, you've got your Guardian, and then they can basically be chromaed into the same Guardian, but with visual distinctions.
Awesome, gotcha. And Shadow Dame mentioned in the comments here, we're renaming the special editions to chroma. And awesome, we'll just take a few more questions here, so Clay can get some much well-deserved rest, so it's fresh for 2024. We definitely
Oh
need
no,
him.
I'm not done resting yet. I have so much to do by end of day Friday. It is so the good news here is MindLoader is working through the holidays because it's not holidays for them, but essentially trying to get everything in order.